Well. Hello there, and we are back live on college basketball coast to coast and our Saturday night program. It seems like we've been doing this Saturday night thing for weeks because we have been doing it for weeks. I am merely the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. Jason Powers is my wingman. Brother Powers, good to be back with you as we have seen 7 pieces to the puzzle take effect here tonight. Give me your thoughts on what we've seen from crazy finishes with the Oakland-NC State game coming to mind, the Tennessee-Texas game that we just watched. Also, tonight, we've seen some of the favorites roll. We've got one game in progress, but a lot has gone on in this 2024 NCAA basketball tournament second round as we narrow down to the Sweet 16. Jason, good to have you. What are your thoughts here as we get underway on a Saturday night live?
We saw a couple professional performances by Iowa State and Arizona, and then we saw a blitzkrieg by Gonzaga in the second half, the first 8 or 10 minutes of the second half to blow Kansas out. 2 great games in the Tennessee-Texas game, a little bit of a controversial finish at Oakland and NC State, and we even have a new coach at Michigan.
Yes, how about that? I mean, the news never stops here, including the coaching carousel, where we will go ahead and say Florida Atlantic's Dusty May is now the University of Michigan's Dusty May, including multiple reports, including our insider Adam Zagoria, who will be with us here in a little while. I just taped with Adam a few minutes ago before we went live here on the program. He confirms as well Dusty May has taken the job and has so informed his Florida Atlantic athletic department and players. And by the way, FAU was just in Brooklyn where Adam was, lost yesterday on Friday. And one day later, he's apparently agreed to the job to go take over for Juwan Howard, who had been fired at Michigan after an 8-win season. A quick reaction from you that it's not the Louisville job that the Louisville media has been talking about for the last 2 or 3 days or more. It's the Michigan job for Dusty May, the Florida Atlantic coach.
Well, for me and you, it was one day too soon. We all thought he'd have a new job on Monday, but he did it on Saturday night. So he beat us by about 30 hours. So good for Dusty May. He had to do this. I mean, he had to strike here when the iron's hot. You know, he did all he could do at FAU. They kind of ran their course with that group of kids. You're right. The Louisville versus Michigan, who knows what the negotiations were, what the numbers were, it's job security. But from all indications, hearing Jay Wright talk on CBS, Seth Davis, they think that's going to be a really good fit with his, affiliation to the university, his Big Ten ties. He was a student manager at Indiana for Bob Knight. He grew up in the Midwest. So I think that's probably a pretty good fit for what his past experiences have being in the Big Ten.
And again, this, as you mentioned, had Big Ten experience before, has been on a couple of different staffs, was with Mike White actually at Florida previously, as well as Billy Kennedy at Murray State. So Dusty May gets his head coaching job at Florida Atlantic and makes the most of it. Final Four a year ago, back in the NCAA tournament this year, and now is going to be the Michigan coach. So that's on top of all the results that we've seen. So thank you for finding us. It is college basketball coast to coast as we come your way on this live Saturday night. Again, we have seen a crazy NC State win. What is with these guys right now with 5 wins in the ACC tournament in 5 nights, and now NC State survives a valiant Oakland team. The 11 beat the 14 seed in overtime, not without controversy, Jason. At the end of regulation, let's get into it, where tie game, final seconds, Oakland's trying to run a play. Looks like they've thrown the ball out of bounds. It's going to be off them. It's going to be NC State's ball until we see replays that it looks like it's off the NC State player, and Oakland's going to have one more chance until they review in the tie game and say, no, we're going to leave the call, and it's NC State's call. Full disclosure, you and I were watching this together about 90 minutes ago. Crazy that they did not overturn it. It results in a half-court shot not going in for NC State. It results in overtime, and NC State wins the game. So Oakland never got the last chance and lost the game in overtime. Your reaction to all of that?
It was crazy. And, again, we didn't have the volume on, so we couldn't hear what they were talking about on the review. Sounds like Sterator on CBS made a comment about the ball was still in the Oakland kid's hand when the ball deflected off the NC State guy, so maybe that changes how they rule that. I don't know for sure on that. But again, Greg Kampe is going to a lot of speculation about him retiring. He's going to rue the night, and he's going to think about that play call of not getting a shot at the rim to win the game there in the last 6, 7, 8 seconds.
The sharpshooter Jack Golke had hit 6 threes in the game. They had made a couple of other three-point shots late, but they were trying to get the ball to Trey Townsend, their star big man, who I had seen in the Horizon League championship game. They were trying to get it to him with about 3 or 4 seconds left when the errant pass happened. And so Oakland, tiny Oakland out of the Horizon League, was this close to maybe winning a second NCAA tournament game. Instead, Kevin Keats' NC State team. I mean, all they've done is beaten Duke and then eventually beaten North Carolina for the ACC title. Now they knock off a good Texas Tech team, beating the 6th seed, and now they beat Oakland in this dramatic game. Well, you start talking about a team that is playing with nothing to lose and on a heater. How about the NC State Wolfpack out of Raleigh into the Sweet 16?
Again, kind of reminds us of 1983. Jimmy V had to win the ACC tournament in 83 to get in. They escape. If you remember back in 83, they escaped. I think they won 2 one-point games or something like that in the first couple of rounds. NC State escapes tonight, gets out of this game with overtime. Is this kind of one of those miracle runs back in the, VCU George Mason kind of run here? They got, I think Marquette would be next if Marquette were to win, I think.
Correct.
So, that's not a non-winnable game. And boy, DJ Burns in the middle with that size, and he's a very good passer out of the post. We're just opening up these 3-point shots for these shooters. Is this a team of destiny?
Again, you're hearing the voice of Jason Powers, TJ Rives with you. Jason from the Powers on Sports podcast, my wingman, as well on college basketball coast to coast. Find him at JPO Sports. I am merely TJ Rives. Whether you're watching us and seeing us live on Saturday night, or you're hearing us after the fact in podcast form. Obviously, in podcast form, you're going to know all the results, etc. as Saturday night becomes Sunday. Also streaming on the TuneIn College Basketball Coast to Coast channel, the audio version of what we're doing. We're live. Come find the video. YouTube, Facebook, CBB Coast to Coast, Twitter page. All right, Tennessee, Texas came down to the wire, and the Vols hung on. They led by 8 late in the game. Texas was valiant and made some shots. But again, Tennessee out-executed them, made their free throws, and did enough to win and advance to the Sweet 16 as the 2 seed out of the Midwest. Jason, give me a couple of thoughts real quick.
If you were with us last night, you heard Vince Ferrara, who covers Tennessee up in Knoxville. He was wondering about Tennessee's late game free throws, and give Adu and Connect credit. They went 5 of 6 down the stretch in the last 20 seconds or so to put the game away. And again, valiant effort by Texas. They were down the whole second half. I don't think they ever got the lead. They got within 1 or 2 a couple times. But again, these were the games in the past that Rick Barnes found a way to give away. Connect made a couple of big shots late. Again, he's the guy that can take the game over and make the big shot. They got the ball to him at the end to shoot the free throws. So again, good job by Rick Barnes in Tennessee to get to they got a matchup potentially with Creighton coming up in the 2-3.
Connect finished with 18. He was 1 for 9 to start the game again. He was better as the game went on, and Tennessee made clutch free throw after clutch free throw, as you made mention of, to knock out Rick Barnes' former school. He once had Texas in the Final Four. They beat them tonight 62-58. Texas awaits the winner of the Oregon-Creighton game. Creighton, the 3 seed, playing the 11 seed Oregon and leading Creighton right now 36-34. We will probably have that final, but if we don't, you already know that result if you're listening on podcast, on the TuneIn streaming channel, of what happened there. Did Creighton advance, or is Oregon the 11th seed? Another one of those hot teams, Jason. They won the the Pac-12 tournament last Saturday night at this time just to get the automatic bid. They knocked out South Carolina on Thursday. Do they have enough in the second half with Creighton to make it to the Sweet 16 to play Tennessee?
I would say
a lot of people love Creighton to come out of this bracket in the Final Four, but they're going to have to battle Oregon tooth and nail in the second half.
I would say this: if you watch the first half of this game, Creighton had a ton of wide open look 3-point shots they didn't make. I would anticipate they're going to make a higher percentage of those in the second half if they keep getting those looks. I think Creighton will find a way to get through because they're just getting much easier offense. They're not making all their shots yet, but getting a lot easier shots than Oregon's getting here in this first half.
Again, Illinois, the 3 seed in the East Regional, has blasted Duquesne tonight, 89-63. Terrence Shannon with 30. Quick reaction from you. This was never close. Nope. This was 50-26 at the half. Does it shock you that it was that big of a blowout? Real quick.
No, dominating performance by Illinois, way better than Duquesne. Duquesne played way over their skis, and it just caught up with them today. Give Illinois all the credit. They put their foot on their throat and didn't let them up.
Also tonight, Iowa State has beaten Washington State. That's the 2 seed at the bottom of the bracket in the East. With these teams advancing to Boston, we're going to talk with Adam Zagoria, our insider, in a little bit about the Boston Regional and whoever ends up there. So Iowa State wins 67-56. Lipsy with 15. Slugfest game. Iowa State just
a methodical performance. Yeah, methodical.
Yeah, Iowa State and Illinois. Fascinating matchup. It's going to be upcoming in the Sweet 16, with the other battle potentially being UConn and potentially San Diego State. Obviously, Yale might have something to say about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Those teams were impressive. Arizona, all the way back at the beginning of the day, won in the West Regional in Salt Lake over Dayton. They had some trouble in the first half, but poured it on in the second half of this game, 78-68. Not a big game from Caleb Love, but Arizona just put it on Dayton. Led at one point by 15, ended up winning by 10 at the end of that one. Quick thought on Arizona as the 2 seed in the West bracket, trying to maybe line up and play North Carolina in the Elite Eight.
Instead of breakfast at Wimbledon, it was breakfast in Salt Lake with the early tip time at like 10:45. You could have had biscuits and hash browns and eggs for watching the Arizona game if you were out west. But no, again, kind of game that in years past Arizona would have struggled and maybe got knocked off. Give them credit. They got through the game. Now they're going to, potential showdown again and down the road here with Carolina. And again, good win for Tommy Lloyd.
Again, Arizona beaten a year ago by a 15 seed Princeton. Much better, obviously, this year now in the Sweet 16 after the win over Dayton. We mentioned North Carolina. They were down by 11 to Michigan State early on. And then, like lightning, came roaring back. It was like a 17-0 run, I believe. Yep. Carolina ends up getting 18 from Armando Bacot and 7 rebounds. They had a lot of three-pointers in the second half. North Carolina never threatened in the final 5 minutes of the game. They win 85-69 going away. Carolina clearly looks the part right now of a potential Final Four team. They shook off that loss to NC State last Saturday night in the ACC championship game, and have looked great in the 2 games here by wiping out Wagner and then really not threatened against Michigan State. Michigan State was so good in the first 8 minutes of the game, and then it was all North Carolina after that. That's my assessment. Jason, what did you think?
Yep. Key player for Carolina. He had a really good game today. The third scorer, Harrison Ingram, played really well to complement Bacot and R.J. Davis. Cormac didn't shoot the ball very well, the Ryan kid. But again, if Harrison Ingram plays on the inside, whether it's rebounding and scoring, they're going to be a tough out because of the 3-headed monster, him, Bacot, and R.J. Davis. It's pretty tough if they continue to play well.
Again, just going through the finals from earlier today, North Carolina's final again is 85-69. Also, the Gonzaga win 89-68 over Kansas. Again, a large scoring run for them. I believe they began the second half 20-2. Or
down
something
one,
like that. They were down
1 at the half.
Down 1 at the half, and they just wiped Kansas out in the second half. Kansas without Kevin McCullough, but no excuses. You play with who you have. They had a banged-up Hunter Dickinson, but they still got Furphy, the shooter, DeJuan Harris, a shooter. Gonzaga just better. Watson finished with 21, Nembhard the guard, and Mark Few in 9 consecutive Sweet 16s now. Another Sweet 16. We were talking a month ago on College Basketball Coast to Coast, the live show, the podcast. Is Gonzaga going to make the field? They made the field, Jason. They made the Sweet 16 again. One more thought on their easy win to get into the Sweet 16.
Kansas with no depth. And how about the comments post-game by Bill Self? I was already thinking about next year. For a month, we've been thinking about next year, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't believe he said that publicly. But again, on to Gonzaga. Not the star power they've had in the past years, but it seems like they play well together. They're very efficient offensively. They've still got guys that can score. Watson, Nembhard. Yeah, they've got some big guys. They've IK, the EK kid in the post who can play. And by the way, hurt and under for some of us here late. But
you were very interested in the end of the game. If you were, let's say, short-term invested on the point total, because you were in good shape, as we always like to say, until you weren't in good shape when Graham Ike got a 3-point play the old-fashioned way in the final minute of the game, and then they took him out. And then a walk-on for Gonzaga bombed in a three-pointer, and my man Powers is shaking his head, short-term invested on, how shall we say, he was underwhelmed by that finish.
Right. As Al Michaels would say, overwhelming. It's all of a sudden
an overwhelming finish. You were looking to be underwhelmed by that finish, but instead, Gonzaga did enough right to the very end. And again, they were impressive. They await Purdue or Utah State. What a matchup that's going to be in the in Detroit if it comes to it for Purdue and Gonzaga in a Sweet 16 game. If it's there,
they'll be able to play with Purdue, and they got enough size and bodies that they'll be able to bang around 80 a little bit, and they've got enough athleticism that they're going to be just as athletic, if not more, than Purdue potentially. So again, it's a winnable game in the Sweet 16.
Love all of the insight from Jason Powers. Again, Adam Zagoria, our insider, will be here in a little bit. We look forward to hearing from him, not only on the Dusty May deal to Michigan. If you're just joining us live, that is the agreement apparently for the Florida Atlantic coach. He's going to be the new Michigan head coach. Adam also talking about that crazy finish with Oakland and NC State. Should the Grizzlies out of the Tiny Horizon League have gotten one more chance at the end of regulation? And Adam will be OL on location in the Barclays Center, by the way, for the two games, Duke, James Madison, and UConn, the defending champs against Northwestern. Those games coming tomorrow afternoon. By the way, let's make mention while we're right here before we get to our next guest that we are brought to you in part by TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app. If you're looking to get into any of these games on Sunday at any of the different locales, from Brooklyn to Memphis to Spokane, I'm going to probably leave one out. What's the other one? Indianapolis, I think, is the other one.
Indy, yes.
If you're looking to be in any of those locations, use TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app. Why? Best secondary ticket market prices. You're going to find the most competitive prices right there on TicketSmarter. Your purchase is safe and secure, and our promo code COAST20 gets you $20 off at TicketSmarter. It is an astronomical get-in price of like $600 right now for the Barclays Center. I know it's $20, but take $20 off with COAST20, our promo code. TicketSmarter mobile app.
Pays your Uber from the hotel.
Sure. And by the way, it's still good as many times as you want to use it. Use that code COAST20. Use it for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 coming next week, or the Final Four. TicketSmarter, get in the game. Think smarter, TicketSmarter. Our promo code is COAST20. That's one of our sponsors on college basketball coast to coast here tonight. TJ Rives, Jason Powers live. Again, if you're hearing us in podcast form, thank you. But this is the video show that we're doing live here on the program on this Saturday night. Let's welcome in the West Coast Bureau Chief. I love the insight of Matt Zimick, National College Basketball writer and historian for many years, writes for TrojansWire.com, the USC website for the USA Today family of websites. And Matt joins us right now to talk about what we've been seeing already today. 7 finals. One Western team, Mr. Zimick, Oregon battling Creighton as we do this live in the second half. Good to have you, my friend. Just an overall thought or two on the 7 games we've seen today, narrowing the field down here.
Well, I mean, today we've had the favorites bucking up and getting the job done, unlike John Calipari in Kentucky, unlike Auburn at the free throw line. So today's a day for favorites, and that's generally what you expect, especially when you get some of those weakened brackets. The second round can often be a snoozer, or at least lack that magical upset, and it's been that kind of second round Saturday here at the NCAA tournament.
No doubt about that. All right, so we love to lean on you for all things. Weigh in right away on the end of NC State and Oakland. We've explained the scenario, tie game, the ball goes out of bounds on an errant pass. We see a replay that looks like it's off the finger. Welcome to the high definition 4K replays now, that it's off the pinky finger of an NC State player. Nevertheless, the game officials look at it and say, we're not going to overrule. We're going to say it's NC State's ball out of bounds, last touched by Oakland. So that denies the Grizzlies, the 14 seed, one last shot to maybe win the game in regulation. NC State missed about a 50-footer off the backboard that would have won it. NC State eventually wins in overtime. I've set it up again. Matt, your reaction, including the apparent explanation upon further review that the Oakland player still had the ball on his hands while it was being touched. What do you make of all of that? Was Oakland robbed in that situation tonight in the South Regional?
Well, you know how in baseball we have the situation with replay where, if you slide into the base and your foot pops off the bag for, a split second and the fielder keeps the glove on you, on replay, you're out. And technically, okay, we can say that he had the glove on the foot while the foot was not attached to the base. But is that what we should be using replay for? And is that why we should be adjudicating various calls? Let's remember the 2019 national title game, Texas Tech, Virginia. We had that same basic kind of situation. The defensive player from Virginia pokes the ball and it peels off the pinky finger of the Texas Tech dribbler. All right. So technically you could say it should have been Virginia ball and the call was fine. But really the impetus of the play was the defense poking the ball away. And so should we be using replay to microanalyze that? The defense should poke the ball away. And to my mind, guys, I don't think this has happened yet. There should be a rule where, basically around the impetus of the play, the impetus of the action, that even if the ball might graze the fingernail or the pinky, the outside pinky of the offensive player, the ball should still remain with the offense because the defense poked the ball away. So in my mind, replay has gotten so deep down the rabbit hole of litigating fingernails and pinkies that we're not focusing on the bigger things. So I think this replay discussion is a great time to mention the Samford block shot against Kansas. All right. So we'll spend a million minutes with outside fingernails of pinkies, but we won't deal with, he blocked a shot. He made a great defensive play. And hey, I've reffed basketball, not at college, but I reffed high school ball.
And Jason's hand's going to go up. My hand's going to go up. We have reffed as well. Continue.
Yeah. When you see a player flying and hitting the deck the way the Kansas player hit the deck, you're inclined to make the foul call. Like you as a ref, you do not want to be that guy who a guy gets hurt and you didn't make a foul call. You do not want to be that guy. So I probably would have called a foul there. But here's the thing. That's why you should have replay. Not for pinkies and fingernails, but for did a guy block a shot or was it a foul? And so we either need to have one of two things. Either everything gets reviewed instead of just for certain kinds of plays in the last minute, maybe the last 2 minutes. Either everything gets reviewed, that's one avenue, or a coach gets a coach's challenge. So Bucky McMillan of Samford would have a coach's challenge. He can challenge the review. It would have been, the ball wouldn't necessarily have gone to Samford. Maybe it's possession arrow, and of course we should have a discussion about the possession arrow still in college basketball. But so
it would have gone to Samford because they blocked the ball clean and they immediately got the ball.
Immediately,
like the NFL
does.
And since we're stopped in some conferences, but I don't know if this is the case in the NCAA tournament, you can do a challenge, but the risk is if you're wrong, you lose a timeout. If you're wrong, which they have some kind of, but I don't think that's clear in the NCAA tournament. All right, so Matt, we're going to move along to several things, but the condensed version, do you believe the call was the wrong call and Oakland was robbed of one last chance to win in regulation? Or do you think it was fine with they had their chance and were microanalyzing the outside of a pinky finger?
Right.
Well, it's a little bit of both. I do think we spend way too much time on fingernails and not enough time on, did a guy block a shot or foul somebody? But I would have given the ball to Oakland. I would say that with 1.3 seconds left, as opposed to 5, as opposed to 10, there are gradients there. And it was a 50-50 game. And, in terms of, calls that, you'll never forget or calls that you'll really lose sleep about, that wouldn't rate too highly, right? Like a call that really, ripples through the pages of time was the phantom foul on Rumeal Robinson against Seton Hall at the end of the 1989 title game in Seattle. It was nothing there. It was a nothing play. There was no discernible foul advantage game type situation. That's what you remember in terms of a really bad call marring a game. This does not rise to that level.
Quick example, and we'll move on, TJ. Yesterday in the Florida-Colorado game, the guy clearly clears him out on the last shot, which if the referee, he should have blown the whistle, should have been offensive foul. No free throws would have been shot. Florida would have just got the ball out of bounds with 2 seconds to go. Those are the kind of game-changing calls that you don't make that makes the official look bad too.
And KJ Simpson would have fouled out. Gators would have had a massive advantage in overtime.
And then you lose the game.
Absolutely.
And again, I don't want to go
talk more about those plays, not fingernails.
I just don't want to go down the, as you said, rabbit hole of fouls, take the foul off the board, whatever, because we're already at the review table way too much and way too long. For example, I was in US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis for that painful length of time where they kept reviewing, is it off the fingertip of the Texas Tech player or not? Yeah. It did take forever. With that, one more point, and then I want to talk about the rest of the results. Do you believe, quick answer, do you believe we're headed maybe to a centralized replay where somebody other than the game officials in the final minute will actually be looking at it? College football has started going that direction. The NFL goes that direction. The NHL, the NBA, and the pros. Could this be leading us to central replay for the NCAA tournament games, centralized replay? Quickly, Matt.
It's very possible. My big thing about this, since we're talking about replay in sports on a larger conceptual level, is that the rule book needs to be written in ways that it is very easy to adjudicate these plays if you are a game official or if you're in a command center in front of a bank of monitors. The rules need to be simpler. The rules are too complicated. Now, this is a little bit more of a football problem than a basketball problem, but still, like with that Texas Tech Virginia play from 2019, if we had a rule or provision in the rule book, which talked about the impetus of action, you wouldn't be reviewing that play because it wouldn't be a question in the rule book whether the ball went off the fingernail of the offensive player. Impetus of action would make that a moot point. And so you wouldn't have to review that. So let's rewrite the rule book so that you don't have to review certain things, and so that when you do review certain things, it's much simpler for the official to make a ruling. Because like I know this is not really basketball, but in football, just to kind of drive home the example, catch rules have become so unnecessarily complicated and convoluted that's why the reviews take so long. If we had 1978 catch rules, replay would take 5 seconds to change plays. And I come back to the example, Butch Johnson in Super Bowl 12 for the Cowboys against the Broncos. In 1978, Pat Summerall, Tom Brookshire didn't wonder if that was a catch. They just accepted it. If the rules were simpler as they were back then, you wouldn't see refs in any sport, including basketball, take 1 million years for these reviews. And that's
called gambling. It's called gambling.
Yeah, gambling has something to do with it. Matt Zimick is with us. We're live on College Basketball Coast to Coast on the platforms, on YouTube, on Facebook. Find us on Twitter as well in podcast form. Hear us as well on all the podcast outlets. If you're hearing us, obviously, after the fact, you can come find the video show when we do this live, but subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, under College Basketball Coast to Coast, live TuneIn channel as well, streaming on TuneIn, College Basketball Coast to Coast. And we love Matt's insight with the Trojans Wire website, trojanswire.usatoday.com. All right, real quick, I put the buffet in front of you. Western basketball's feeling good about a lot of things. Gonzaga was very impressive earlier today with their win. So too was Arizona. Again, Oregon is toe-to-toe tonight with Creighton. That's the 11 against the 3. That's the last outstanding result that we're waiting on. Some thoughts on the Saturday games, just real quick, and then we'll look ahead to Sunday.
Well, so, Arizona always has like 10, 15 minutes a game where it plays with its food. Had the 17-point lead, went down to 4, but then very good job of stealing itself and regrouping in the final 8 minutes to put that game away. But Arizona's had a great draw. Like, you could not ask for a better draw through the first 3 rounds of this tournament than what Arizona's received. But nevertheless, like, Arizona's had good draws before and not taken advantage. So really good job by Tommy Lloyd. And then the other thing with Western basketball is Colorado. I mean, and yes, they got away with the push off at the end of the Florida game, and they almost choked that one away. But you're seeing that offense execute at a level that we did not see through mid-February. Completely different team last month of the season. In many ways, Colorado and Gonzaga both, like they got to mid-February, it was grim, they were struggling, and then the next month they have both turned on the Jets. Oregon, it took a little while longer. Oregon was not even a team that really got it together in February. The Ducks waited until that semifinal, that Pac-12 semifinal against Arizona. That was the moment that Oregon turned things around. And, I'm not surprised one bit that this game against Creighton is tight. Remember, Dana Altman as a double-digit seed in March. Do we need to go through the history there? Got to the Sweet 16 in 2013, got to the Sweet 16 in 2019. And in 2019, we all remember Virginia having the close shave against Purdue in the Elite Eight, the game that went to overtime. Oregon was within a bucket of Virginia in the final minute of the Sweet 16 game, and that was Dana Altman as a 12 seed. So Dana Altman as a double-digit seed in March is a holy terror. So this game against Creighton, to me, came across as a coin flip, and that's how it's playing out. And
it's his old employer, Creighton. The selection committee, again, has all these accidents. They have Rick Barnes playing his old team, Texas. They have Dana Altman with Oregon playing his old team, Creighton. All these different cosmic coincidences with this. So we'll see how that Western game plays out. And again, tomorrow, look ahead of tomorrow for just a second. San Diego State and Yale out in Spokane. The winner eventually ends up playing likely UConn in Boston, because all this makes total sense. You've got a team from San Diego playing an Ivy League team in Spokane. Now, at least it's regionally close to Yale if they pull the upset. But if San Diego wins, San Diego's got to go all the way to Boston after being in Spokane. It's crazy how this works. But we'll see what happens in that. And also for the Western teams, interesting that Utah State will get a shot at Purdue as the Mountain West regular season champs. Grand Canyon, the upstart 12 seeds, beat St. Mary's back on Friday night, so they'll play Alabama. Thought on the Western teams real quick? The West Coast bureau chief is here. We want the wisdom.
So the hot rumor in the coaching carousel, as you guys probably know, is that Danny Sprinkle might be headed to Washington. He might be going to Seattle to coach the Huskies. That would be a great get for Washington, and we're seeing why. With Utah State just mopped up TCU. Like Utah State just dominated that second half. So I think Utah State gives Purdue a battle. And then Grand Canyon, here's the thing. Grand Canyon was the more athletic team than St. Mary's. It was fascinating to watch, and we see it all the time at the NCAA tournament. The 12 is more athletic than the 5. Was true of James Madison against Wisconsin, was true of Grand Canyon against St. Mary's. But against Alabama, Grand Canyon's not going to be the more athletic team.
Right.
So it's going to be a completely different kind of challenge for Grand Canyon. And it's going to, St. Mary's is the root canal game in the 50s, and Alabama Nate Oates, they want to play it in the 90s. So can Grand Canyon win 2 entirely different kinds of games? It's going to be a challenge for the Lopes. But hey, Bryce Drew, I'm loving this. He's having a great season. He's having so much prosperity, all while Vanderbilt is searching for its next coach. And here's the thing about Bryce Drew at Vanderbilt. He didn't succeed, but he didn't get the time that Jerry Stackhouse got. And that's just always going to puzzle me. And let's remember, Darius Garland, future NBA star, first-round draft pick, he got hurt. That always baffled me.
For the season.
Of course Vanderbilt was going to be horrible when Darius Garland got hurt.
He got hurt for the season.
Vandy's equation.
Right. He got hurt for the season before their conference season began. So the AD gets rid of him. He goes to Grand Canyon, to your point. They've been in the NCAA tournament 3 times now, and they've won a game. Bryce Drew was in the NCAA tournament his first year at Vanderbilt. Bryce Drew was in the NCAA tournament at Valparaiso, his alma mater. Bryce Drew won an NCAA tournament game with a legendary buzzer beater 3-point shot. Why do I get the feeling they will have some mojo? Powers weigh in. Why do I get the feeling there's some Bryce Drew mojo to keep the game close with Alabama and have a shot here? Jason, quick thought.
They can't get into a track meet, though. They got to keep the tempo at a decent, manageable level because they're going up in weight class and athleticism. They will get run out if they try to go into a track meet. They need to keep this game in the 60s, low 70s, and then they got a chance. But, boy, they got some players. And, Matt, you're right there in Phoenix where they're located. The fan base loves them. You saw the crowd that was there in Spokane last night. They brought some people. They'll have more people there than Alabama will tomorrow. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
No question about it. No question about it.
Hey, San Diego State and Yale. San Diego State Final Four team a year ago. 1 week ago tonight in the Mountain West title game, Jason and I had a ringside seat with TC Martin, our buddy, calling the Mountain West title game on the TuneIn channel, college basketball coast to coast. We called the Mountain West title game. And San Diego State plays basically one way, half court, grind
Dump
you.
it
They
in.
want to play
Dump
in the
it in the
60s.
post.
That's how get it in the post to Ladie, play a close game, work the shot clock, play tough defense, make free throws. And that's kind of what Yale does as well.
Exactly.
So is this game going to be like 51-50 old school, do we think?
Well, first off, Jaden's name is all wrong. It should be La-O, not La-D, given how well he scores.
Yeah.
But let's note this. And of course, San Diego State beat Alabama, the 1 seed last year. So it had to beat the giant in its region. But on the first weekend, San Diego State got a bracket break with Furman beating Virginia. So this is the second straight year San Diego State's been able to get a double-digit seeded opponent in the Sweet 16. And San Diego State was excellent against Furman a year ago. I expect San Diego State to be really good here. San Diego State was down 58-55 with 5 minutes left. Didn't play its best game. I expect San Diego State to be on point. And hey, Yale, tremendous resilience, had its own Golke moment, with just tossing in these amazing threes, but also Pulakitis. Yale's also living a charmed life. Was down to Brown in the final minute of the Ivy League final. Brown misses free throws. Yale steals it. Yale was in deep trouble against Auburn. Auburn misses a pile of late free throws. Yale steals it. It only lived that way so many times. So I think in terms of the laws of averages evening out, I say San Diego State by 10 to 12 points.
San Diego State needs to get double digits out of 2 out of these 3 guys, Parrish, Butler, and our guy Jay Powell, TJ. They got to get Ladie some help. He cannot rely on Ladie to have to get 35.
Can't be a one-man.
2 other guys to get the
I expect that. I expect that too, Jason.
But give them credit that they have found a way repeatedly in postseasons to put themselves in position. They don't panic. They were down 17 to Utah State in the semifinal a week ago Friday night in Las Vegas, roared back to win. They were down double figures and took the lead on New Mexico in the second half. Nip and tuck game with UAB, they found a way. And again, Lamont Butler is another piece that can score for this team. So let's see what Brian Dutcher's team has. We've got to run here in just a second. The update again as we do this live. You already know the result if you're hearing us in podcast form or delayed on Sunday. We're doing it live. Saturday night is a video show. Creighton leads Oregon 52-51 with about 9 minutes to go. If they are able to get the win, then the Pac-12 success continues. If Oregon is able to get the win and move in with Arizona on the bottom half of the draw in the West Regional, and we're still waiting on the Colorado result for the Pac-12 on Sunday. Matt, any final thought? Anything else from Saturday that we didn't cover? Maybe something looking ahead to Sunday in the 8-game Sunday that we haven't teed you up with? Anything else?
I think just the other thing to note about the Pac-12 success, for every win, Oregon State and Washington State collect future revenue. That is the big story coming out of this, that Oregon State and Washington State, their budgets, their revenue flows have been gutted, by the death of the Pac-12. This is enabling them to recoup a lot of revenue. So Washington State and Oregon State, they're rooting for Oregon. Right. Doesn't happen often, but they're definitely doing Arizona. And they're hoping that Arizona can come down here to Phoenix, which it wasn't able to do in 2017, the last time it was here.
One quick comment about Colorado. They're not playing in an intramural game tomorrow. Marquette's going to bring the defense. It's going to be much more difficult. It was an intramural game against Florida. Track meet, layup line drill kind of game. I wonder if Colorado can grind one out, because Marquette's not going to try to run and gun tomorrow. They're going to try to keep this game in the high 60s, in the 70.
Jason, I mean, I think Marquette obviously brings more to the table defensively than Florida. And of course, it's worth knowing Florida had a key injury, heading into the tournament that affected the matchup against Colorado. But like, if I'm Marquette, I'm obviously counting on my defense to do a much better job than Florida did. But at the same time, Marquette can score. Like, if I'm Marquette, I'm not worried about playing in the 80s because I'm the 2 seed. I'm the better team. I can play this game slow. I can play this game fast. If I'm Marquette, I'm not worried too much about tempo. I'm just focused more on find your man, get your assignment, take KJ Simpson out of the game.
Your guy Eddie Lampkin
was a beast.
Your guy Eddie Lampkin was a beast the other night against Florida.
Yep, sure was. Yep, that's right.
All right.
So
again, we will find out the result of this Oregon game a little later on tonight. We probably will have the final before we're off the air. Again, if they are victorious, they're playing Tennessee in the Sweet 16 in the Midwest games in Detroit. If Colorado is somehow victorious against the 2 seed Marquette, they're in the South Regional in Dallas if they get through. We already know Arizona has gotten through in the West Regional in Los Angeles. There will be a few Arizona fans at the Crypto.com Arena downtown Los Angeles for that. And what happens with San Diego State, Grand Canyon, Utah State? They're all still alive for Sunday. By the way, Matt Zimick, Trojans Wire, .usatoday.com and the Trojans Wire website. Shall we chant it? Juju. All right, Juju Smith. Juju Watkins, not to be confused, the receiver, Juju Smith for the football team. Juju Watkins was tremendous today in the opening round game. That's step one for USC. The freshman had 23 points, had like 4 blocks in the game. Watch out for Juju Watkins and USC basketball for the women.
Yep, USC 1 win away from its first Sweet 16 in women's basketball in 30 years. So that's where Juju is taking this program.
We're talking Lisa Leslie, right? It's the last time.
Yes.
And I saw Cheryl Miller.
It hasn't gone in a long time.
I saw Cheryl Miller addressing the team as well earlier in the Pac-12 season or the Pac-12 tournament. Juju Watkins. All the attention for Caitlin Clark, rightfully so. All the attention on South Carolina being the unbeaten number 1 seed that they are. LSU, the defending champs. But don't forget about a little Juju for Southern Cal and Trojans Wire. We like the good Juju. Matt Zimick, thank you. We'll lean on you again. Let's see what happens with all the craziness with the Western teams, especially. No East Coast bias on college basketball coast to coast. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Matt joining us here tonight. TJ Rives, Jason Powers. We're going to hear from Adam Zagoria in a few moments here on the latest edition of the live show on this Saturday night. Again, if people have not seen all the Saturday night finals, Illinois did blast Duquesne 89-63 behind 30 from Terrence Shannon. It was no contest. Illinois through in the Sweet 16 to play Iowa State, who won earlier in the night over Washington State. So you get the 2 seed versus the 3 seed in that one. 2-seeded Tennessee beat the 7-seed Texas. Rick Barnes over his old school that he was once in the Final Four with. They won 62-58. Jason, quick comment again. They had to hang on, Tennessee, including making foul shots, overcoming a Texas team that was tough at the end, but Tennessee advances to the Sweet 16.
They showed some moxie tonight. I'll give them credit. They made the free throws late. They didn't play like Vince said, tight as Tennessee has played in years past under Rick Barnes. He's shown now they can win a grinded out kind of game. So that's a good omen for Tennessee as they go to Detroit for the Sweet 16, where I think they're going to get the Creighton Oregon winner.
The Creighton Oregon winner does await. And by the way, the controversial final for Oakland and NC State. NC State did pull the game out in overtime as the 11 seed. By the way, Jason, we love the Nuggets. The 11 seed has never lost to the 14 seed in these bracket buster games. 6 previous meetings, 6 wins. This was the 7th win tonight, 79-73 over Oakland, despite Trey Townsend's 30, despite Jack Golke making 6 more three-pointers. NC State got enough. DJ Burns with 24 and 11 rebounds. They made foul shots in overtime. And by the way, shouldn't we give a shout out? Because he may be still watching. He may be watching earlier. He'll see this. our guy Stafford Burrows. Stafford met up with us tonight. You and I were having dinner in North Tampa, and Stafford was right there. Stafford is a guy from Jamaica. Stafford also has Canadian ties.
Toronto.
And loves the hockey, sort of understands college basketball. We were educating him. He was having a blast with us. And all I got to say for Stafford is very entertaining night. Here's your shout out on the live college basketball coast to coast program. And should we say it? Mike's key lime pie.
Say it, baby.
If you could get a bite of Mike's key lime pie, everybody in Florida wants key lime pie. Get a little key lime pie while you're watching the end of Oakland and NC State. You and I were having to explain to him, how is this ball not going back to Oakland for one more shot? Yeah. What's up with instant replay? I understand the gripe, Jason, that the Oakland fans are going to have. Why do we have replay if we're not going to give them that one more chance with the ball off the fingertip? I understand the argument that we're now in the 4K digital world with the slow-mo replay, but that sure looked like it was off his finger, out of bounds, should have been Oakland's ball. I mean, the look on Greg Campy, 40-year coach of Oakland, was like, what? You've got to be kidding me that we're not going to get one more chance at the end of regulation. Didn't happen. Game goes to OT. Let's don't lose sight of the fact they had 5 more minutes to play, and NC State flat out played them, though.
They did.
And shout out to our man Stafford, Jason. We had a fun time meeting him.
Very entertaining guy. He's a huge Toronto Maple Leaf fan. They were rolling the Edmonton Oilers tonight. He didn't like the NHL network coverage, but that's another topic. So,
by the way, Zach Edey from Canada, from the Toronto area, so he's going to latch on to Purdue in that game with Utah State tomorrow. So, Stafford, you got your shout out here on college basketball.
And by the way, Tom Izzo still hasn't beat North Carolina.
He's 0 for 5. He's 0 for 5.
Okay.
And then as a program, they are now 0 6 all time against Carolina, including the 09 championship game with Tyler Hansbrough over Draymond Green.
He did like Kawhi Leonard. He was a Raptors fan. He did like Kawhi Leonard's triple doink when he beat the Sixers back in the day. So he loves him.
Our guy Stafford, yes. We love that. Again, so we've been going over the results from the night. NC State moves on to get the winner of Marquette and Colorado tomorrow. That's the 2 seed playing against the 10 seed in that one. By the way, Colorado trying to come out of the first 4, Jason, and make it to the Sweet 16 if they're able to pull the upset against Marquette. Again, Gonzaga won early in the day over Kansas. They will play the winner of Purdue and Utah State tomorrow. Arizona won in the very first game of the day easily over Dayton. Dayton kind of made it a game at the end, but it still ended up being double figures. Arizona awaits the winner of Clemson and Baylor coming tomorrow in Memphis. A lot of people think Baylor may end up being in the Final Four. They got to go through Arizona potentially here to do it, if that's the case. So we're just going over some of the finals.
Quick update here for our live listeners. 5 minutes to go. Oregon up 6 on Creighton. 9-0 run.
What a story.
5 minutes.
Can we say enough about NC State? 5 wins in 5 nights. Oregon gets 4 wins in 4 nights at the Pac-12 tournament. They were not in the tournament, even with a semifinal win that they got over Arizona. They were probably still not in the tournament at large had they not gotten the automatic bid. They get the automatic bid in the final ever Pac-12 tournament. They now slot in and end up winning over South Carolina as an 11 seed on Thursday. Now they're beating the 3 seed Creighton, who a lot of people have as the team coming out of the region. Midwest bracket. What a story if Oregon gets to the Sweet 16 in the final year of the Pac-12 as an 11 seed. If this is in fact going to happen, the winner again will get Tennessee coming up.
Couisnard and Infali or Dante have been really good for them inside outside. And again, they're up 3 points with 4.5 minutes to go.
Should I say it? The last time the Final Four was in Phoenix, Glendale, Arizona, the Cardinal Stadium, Oregon was there with Dana Altman and company. They won their regional and got to the Final Four before losing out to Gonzaga in that Final Four. So we'll keep you up to date on that game and the end of it. We roll along on college basketball coast to coast on all the platforms. A reminder again to patronize our sponsor, Ticket Smarter. If you're looking for tickets to any of these games, more importantly, Jason, just yourself, but if you've got relatives that are looking to go to any of these games, Barclays Center tomorrow, or if you're seeing us on Sunday in a replay or hearing us on Sunday, if you're trying to get in the Barclays Center for Duke and UConn, good luck. It's going to be like a $500 or $600 ticket. use TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter mobile app. Best prices on the secondary market. Your purchase safe and secure. It'll take you 2 minutes to sign up and peruse and buy tickets, whether you're in Brooklyn or whether you're in Indianapolis, Memphis, Spokane. If you've got friends, Jason, you got a lot of friends and acquaintances in Alabama. The Crimson Tide are playing tomorrow with Grand Canyon. If you don't have your tickets and you're looking, TicketSmarter mobile app, and use our promo code COAST20 for college basketball coast to coast. COAST20, $20 off your order with TicketSmarter. You see it on the screen if you're seeing us on the video. TicketSmarter mobile app, COAST20, $20 off your order of $300 or more. This is good as many times as you want to use it. Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, all the live events.
And not just college basketball, NBA, NHL, MMA
whatever.
Fights,
concerts,
theater shows, Broadway,
live events.
New York.
TicketSmarter. Get in the game, though, with TicketSmarter. Think smarter with TicketSmarter. Promo code COAST20 for any of these college basketball games.
Taylor Swift still on tour?
She is, and you can get into the live events. You might need a lot more than $20 off, but you can take $20 off.
Taylor Swift on tour,
yes,
everybody.
COAST20. Use it from TicketSmarter. All right, let's do this.
Game, 4 minutes to go. 1 point game.
Yeah, let's stay locked in on Oregon and Creighton coming to the under 4 minute timeout. While we watch that finish, we simultaneously will get some insight on an interview earlier tonight with Adam Zagoria. Adam in the New York, New Jersey area will be at the Barclays Center tomorrow for the Duke James Madison game and also UConn Northwestern. He's writing for NJ.com, the New Jersey aggregate site for all of their newspapers, NJ.com, as well as his Zags blog, his own personal blog, zagsblog.com. We'll hear now from Adam on several subjects, including a coaching carousel move, the controversy at the end of the Oakland-NC State game, and more. Let's go to that right now here as part of college basketball coast to coast. As mentioned, I love talking to this guy as an insider. He's getting ready for Sunday. Might it be a tough ticket for Duke in kind of the first part of the doubleheader with James Madison? That's in one bracket, the South bracket. Then the East regional number 1 seed and defending champion UConn is in the nightcap. Oh, by the way, against Northwestern, and Adam Zagoria will be there covering it not only for NJ.com, but his Zags blog, and as well with us as an insider and analyst on college basketball coast to coast. And Adam joins us now kind of in the preview mode. Before we get to Sunday, we got to get a couple things out of the way. First of all, reaction. You've written about it Saturday night here. Dusty May to Michigan. The Florida Atlantic coach is now going to take the Michigan job. A lot of the Louisville media, Adam, thought that this was Dusty May to Louisville. Apparently not. Your reaction to all of it. Good to have you.
Yeah, good to be with you, TJ. I mean, look, we knew he was going somewhere. There was a lot of smoke about the Louisville job. I had NBA guys texting me, asking me if that was for real. And now I just had a source confirm, excuse me, that he's going to Michigan. Obviously, Woj first reported that, but I did have that confirmed. Dusty May was in Brooklyn this week. His team lost on
yesterday, Friday afternoon, right?
Yesterday. And he was, he admitted it was a distraction. There was a lot of talk around the team. One of his players said, if it's his last game, we just want to make it special. So obviously they lost to Northwestern there and it wasn't so special. But that's a great get for Michigan. Obviously he's going to go in there and kind of replace Juwan Howard and, have to kind of clean things up a little bit because it was a little messy under Juwan in the last year. But, the guy's a tremendous coach. He's won 60 games in the last 2 years, went to the Final Four a year ago with Florida Atlantic. And the Big Ten's, that's as big time as it gets.
No doubt. All right, let's see if he can.
Obviously now Louisville has to,
wow.
Has to find someone else if he was indeed their top choice.
What do they do? We'll find out. Carousel is going to be crazy, my friend, as you know, for the next 10 days or 2 weeks with these jobs. All right, so that's in the books. I want to get to Sunday with you, but before we get there, all the talk is the controversy at the end of the NC State Oakland game. Valiant game for Oakland. The game tied. NC State's a tremendous story in their own right as they keep rolling in the postseason. What did you make of that? Because they called the ball out of bounds on the pass for Oakland, and then a replay looked like it showed it's off the pinky of the pinky in high definition of the NC State player. The explanation we're being given is that the ball was still in the process of being passed when the ball was on the pinky. I don't know. Should Oakland have not had one more chance with about a second and a half left, game tied, to try to win the game in regulation? To make it worse, they lose in overtime. Adam, what's your reaction to that whole mess where Oakland didn't have one more chance?
I mean, first of all, it was a bad pass to start with. He stepped out, and it was a tough pass. Even if it hadn't been deflected, it was way to the left, I thought, of the intended receiver. It did look to me like it grazed the pinky of the guy on NC State. So I thought Oakland probably should have gotten another chance there. That's a tough way to go out. You know, it's the bigger picture, I think, is it's just both teams. It was a great story. The Oakland story is great. Josh Golke's, going to be 25 years old in December. I mean, I don't know what you were doing when you were 24, 25. I wasn't in college. I might have been in graduate school. But they beat Kentucky. That was a tremendous win for them. But for NC State and Kevin Keatts, this team has played 7 games in 12 days.
Incredible.
And they're 7-0. That's pretty amazing. They went 5-0 in 5 days in the ACC tournament. Now they're in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2015. It's the first couple of tournament wins for Kevin Keatts, who's a good guy and a good coach. So it's just a phenomenal story for NC State. No doubt. All right. And again, a Saturday that has seen North Carolina flex its muscle earlier in the day and get a win. Arizona, the same thing. Iowa State, the same thing. So that kind of Gonzaga, yes. So that kind of leads us to Sunday, where we've got 2 favored teams in Duke and UConn that you will see at the Barclays Center. So let's start with the first game, Duke and kind of upstart James Madison, although they were very good, Adam, in the game late Friday with Wisconsin. Still, Duke is favored. A thought on that game in the preview mode. That one will be up first in the late afternoon in Brooklyn, where you will be.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real couple great games for us in Brooklyn on Sunday. James Madison, man, I think they got a real chance to pull the upset on Duke. They've won more than 30 games at this point. They looked very impressive and, pretty much dominating Wisconsin the other day. And Duke is really going to have their hands full. It's the Dukes against Duke. And I think a lot of people probably have James Madison, if they're smart, in their bracket coming out of there. I mean, they're a very intense, high-octane offensive team with veteran, an experienced veteran, older team. And they seem hungry. They want to show the country and the world that they belong in this tournament and they can win these games.
They've won 31 of them, and they were very impressive. And again, Duke trying to get into the Sweet 16 after a lot of people kind of forgot about them. And now UConn will be the nightcap. You were around them Friday. You've been around them a bunch this season. Northwestern was good on Friday. Give me a quick thought here on UConn trying to advance and defend their title into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think Northwestern gives UConn a better game, obviously, than Stetson, which got drilled by 40 points. I think Northwestern has the size and the shooters, to hang around there, and make it a competitive game. But I think in the end, UConn advances to Boston and the Sweet 16. I'm just very impressed with Dan Hurley's culture and his team. He says he's, sort of insulated the team and they're focusing on defense and their culture and not trying to get distracted by the pursuit of back-to-back championships. He was upset at his team that they were only up by 19 or whatever it was at half on Friday. So I think they'll be ready and they're really motivated.
We shall see. And it is different. Just one more aspect here. They were not the hunted so much at the beginning of the tournament a year ago. They became the national champs. Now they've been the hunted all the way through the Big East. And now this, it's a little different role because Northwestern is coming after them. They are the hunted UConn right now. One more time, right?
Yeah, I just don't think Northwestern has enough offensive weapons, although the kid Langborg, the Princeton grad transfer, had a big game, 27 points, and Boo Boo, he had 22. So they've got, experienced guys. There's a lot of talk in college basketball now, TJ, especially with Kentucky going out, about, how there aren't very many freshmen left in the tournament making an impact. You need older veteran teams. And obviously Northwestern is that. UConn does have the one freshman, Steph Castle, who's a one and done, but he's surrounded by these experienced guys like Cam Spencer and Tristan Newton, who are both transfers, plus Alex Caravan and Donovan Clingan, who are back from Kentucky's championship team. But I'll tell you, Kentucky's got, that's a tough region there. I mean, Auburn is out because they lost to Yale, but, Iowa State is very good.
Sure.
And Illinois and Iowa State both won their conference tournaments.
Yeah, they looked fantastic, Illinois, in the late game tonight. We'll see. UConn's got a tough road here. It doesn't get easy once you get Sweet 16, Elite 8. It doesn't matter. You're playing tough teams to try to get to the Final Four and win the whole thing. We'll see what happens. You'll be writing about it on NJ.com as well as the Zags blog. I always appreciate the insight, Adam Zagoria, as you'll be covering things in Brooklyn on Sunday. We look forward to talking with you again. We'll be down to 16 teams by late night tomorrow night. Thank you, Adam.
All right, buddy. Take care. Thanks.
So that was just a little while ago, earlier tonight. Adam, again, giving us insight on all things, coaching carousel, as well as the finish to the Oakland-NC State game, heavily scrutinized, and previewing tomorrow. By the way, late stages for Oregon and Creighton in the final minute and a half. Oregon has gotten a couple of stops on the same possession. Got the ball on a held ball, Jason, gone to the other end and gotten a dunk to go up by 4 on Creighton with 1:08 to go in the game.
McDermott really thought he had a timeout on that tie-up before the ball was tied up. McDermott was going nuts that they called timeout beforehand.
But instead, they called it a held ball. It goes to Oregon, then kind of a broken half-court play where Creighton is trying to play defense, and Big Ninfali in Dante slams one down to put them up 62-58. We'll keep you up to date on what happens in the final seconds of that matchup. Again, in the Midwest bracket, the winner to get Tennessee. How about this? In the final minute of the game, Oregon has stopped Creighton, has gotten the rebound. They haven't shot a free throw. In the final minute of the game, they do not have a free throw attempt. Crazy that they're winning by 4 in a round of 32, second round NCAA tournament game. Might they win the game without attempting a foul shot? That's pretty wild on how well that Oregon has played. So we'll keep you up to date on what happens there at the end of that one. That's the final piece of the puzzle here coming up for this Saturday of 8 games, 8 more games tomorrow. We were talking about UConn's draw. Iowa State won tonight. Illinois won tonight. Again, that's at the bottom of the draw in the East bracket. UConn and Northwestern play, and then all the way in Spokane, but it's an Eastern bracket game. San Diego State and Yale play. Yep. So it's very possible, if not likely, UConn playing San Diego State. Stay tuned. Maybe Northwestern and Yale have something to say about that. We'll see.
Home game in Boston, basically, for UConn next weekend, no matter who they play.
And how crazy would it be if Yale slays San Diego State? They're in the Ivy League in New Haven, Connecticut. They won't have as many fans as UConn, but how crazy would that be? And James Jones, the 25-year coach of Yale, had him in the tournament, and they won a game in 2016. He's been there 25 years.
Would he be a guy potentially that Stanford looks at? With the academics, he's used to that.
Correct.
He's been there. He's won. I mean, he'd be a perfect kind of guy. I don't know if he would want to leave.
Crazy. Okay, so crazy that you would leave that Ivy League job to go to Stanford, but even crazier, they're going to be in the ACC. You would go all the way out to the Northern California region, paired up with Cal, but your members with Cal in the ACC playing Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Miami, Syracuse, Boston College, Florida State.
He would probably quadruple his salary, though, if he went to Stanford. And from an economics perspective,
that's true. We'll see if his name's on the radar. What about Bryce Drew at Grand Canyon? I still say on the radar maybe for Oklahoma State. Louisville still looking, as Adam reported. Dusty May headed to Michigan. Interesting. It's the Michigan job that he will end up taking as a
drama. We got some drama. Dante just missed a 1-and-1.
Yep. So Creighton has the ball down 2 with a timeout left. Again, we'll wait to see what happens for the 3 seed against the 11 seed in the late stages of this game.
Wow. Shireman ties it up.
And so a big moment for Creighton as they get the bucket to go down with 9 seconds left to tie the game at 62. The winner again to get Tennessee.
Overtime. We have
there you go.
overtime.
Craziness. One last look for Oregon with a running jumper from about 5 feet away off the iron. They went with the broken play.
Wow.
Didn't get the shot to go down from Cousinard, their top guard, their top scorer who had 40 in the previous game. And now we'll go to overtime for Creighton.
Creighton was down. They were down 4 with 27 seconds. Shireman scores. Dante misses the front end of a 1-and-1, and then Shireman with a fadeaway from the right elbow to tie it up with about 7-8 seconds left. A great finish.
Think point blank, this is going to favor Creighton here in this case. Get the game into overtime, and we'll see what happens in that OT. All right, one more time. Let's run down Sunday. These are the games coming Sunday. The first game up is Colorado. We've talked a lot about them playing Marquette, noon Eastern time. Again, if you're hearing us in podcast form or the TuneIn streaming channel, you know these games are coming up a little bit later on Sunday at noon. That one in Indianapolis in the South bracket. Then up next, also in the South, in the Indianapolis site, but in the Midwest bracket, top seed Purdue plays Utah State.
Yep.
Again, Colorado and Marquette looking to play NC State, Purdue, Utah State looking to play Gonzaga. Then the Duke James Madison game that Adam was just previewing. I still like Duke in that one to move through. They're favored. They're favored by 6 or 6.5 on James Madison.
Your guy Filipowski better come to play tomorrow.
One field goal attempt for Filipowski in the win on Friday night with Vermont. He's got to have more offense in this game with James Madison. So Duke looking to advance to maybe play Houston. Houston plays Texas A&M tomorrow night in Memphis. Duke, James Madison leads it off at the Barclays Center. UConn, Northwestern, about 7:45 Eastern time, the 1 seed in the East on the floor there. Baylor, Clemson, and Memphis in the West Regional. Baylor, the 3 seed. Clemson beat our darling New Mexico. I had New Mexico in the Sweet 16. Clemson took care of them. That's a 3-6 game in the West with the winner to get Arizona. Alabama, Grand Canyon comes up at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, 6 in the state of Alabama against Grand Canyon. That's the 5 or the 4 against the 12.
Let's give a shout out to our guy Chris Stewart, play-by-play guy for the Crimson Tide out in Spokane. You can listen to his broadcast. Find the Crimson Tide Sports Network if you want to listen to him. For sure.
Yeah, very true. Against Grand Canyon, and again, if Alabama is victorious, they'll play North Carolina, the top seed in the West bracket out in Los Angeles. Let's see what happens with that game in Spokane. Will it be a track meet? We mentioned UConn Northwestern tomorrow night at the Barclays Center. And then the last 2 games of the night are Texas A&M and Houston and Memphis. Houston, the top seed, trying to get back in the Sweet 16. They've been there 3 previous times. And San Diego State and Yale will be the final game for the Western audience. 9:40 Pacific time, or 9:40 Eastern time, 6:40 Pacific time. San Diego State, the 5, Yale, the 13. The winner plugs in to get the winner of UConn and Northwestern. I think we've covered everything on a Saturday night. They've gone to overtime, Oregon and Creighton. You will know that result Sunday. Who plugs in to play Tennessee? Rick Barnes, Dalton Connect in Tennessee. Await the winner of that one. Jason, final thoughts before we're gone on a Saturday night.
I got a funny feeling Texas A&M is going to play Houston really well tomorrow. You got Wade Taylor. You got some. They've already played this year, I believe. I think it was a 3 or 4 point game. They're really close to each other. They don't like each other. That's a big spread, 10-point spread. I think that one's going to be a little closer than the experts think.
A&M, by the way, has wins earlier in the year at home over Tennessee and over Florida. A&M won on the neutral floor against Kentucky, and then has, after bowing out against Florida in the semifinals of the SEC tournament, Buzz Williams' Texas A&M team beat up on Nebraska. Very nearly got to 100 points in that game. They're not going to get 100 on Houston unless they play like 8 overtimes. But let's see what happens with arguably the best defense in all of college basketball is Kelvin Sampson's D, Jamal Shedd, LJ Cryer, big bodies underneath. They guard the daylights out of you. Let's see what happens for Houston and Texas A&M. Again, 3 number 1 seeds, Houston, UConn, Purdue, all in action tomorrow. Are we good for a Saturday night? Have we covered enough here?
If our fans can't say they've gotten some nuggets out of tonight, then you got to go find a new show, man.
I would agree, but stick with us because we're going to do this again tomorrow night after the 8 games are complete. Whatever happens with all these different matchups, this time tomorrow night, we should know the Sweet 16, the final 16 teams that remain. Again, one outstanding result as we say goodbye is Oregon and Creighton. You'll know that result on Sunday for who plays against Tennessee. Thanks to Adam Zagoria of NJ.com and the Zags blog. He'll be covering those 2 games, Duke, James Madison, and UConn Northwestern. Thanks also to Matt Zimick of Trojans Wire talking Western basketball with us as an analyst. Jason, I think we've covered it all.
Creighton up 1 with 2.5 minutes to go. Ashworth with a deep 3 up 1.
How about that? Creighton trying to survive as the 3 seed. Let's see what happens. All right, great stuff tonight. Again, thank you. Subscribe in podcast form to get all of the content, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, all of our platforms. We have it up for you on the screen one more time on Twitter X at CBB Coast to Coast with the number 2, CBB Coast to Coast, and also the Coast to Coast YouTube channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast YouTube channel, as well as Facebook for the video show that we've been doing tonight. We'll be on these platforms again coming on Sunday night as well. For Jason Powers, I'm TJ Rives. Thank you for being with us as we talk the college hoops on College Basketball Coast to Coast.